This is Troy with Big Water UAV Solutions, and we're going to go ahead and continue our build of the Cidora SL5 V2.1 HD. What we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead and install the flight controller. We'll hook up the DJI Air Unit, which is this guy right here, to the flight controller. And we'll hook up the ESC, a wiring harness, to the flight controller. And then after we do that, we're going to go ahead and wire up and solder the TBS Crossfire unit to the flight controller. So this is the TBS Crossfire unit right here. It's a Nano unit, and the antenna is attached to the board right now. We'll go ahead and take that apart when we actually do the soldering. So for right now, we'll go ahead and stick this back in. And in this package included is the wires that we'll be using to solder between the Nano RX board and the flight controller board. So what I figured we would do is go ahead and first off pull out the DJI Air Unit harness. Go ahead and just move that aside for a second. And the Air Unit harness, so if you actually look at the harness wire here and you look at the instructions, if you're using the DJI controller, you'd keep the wiring harness intact. Now, because I'm using another transmitter, they want the S-bus and ground wire for the S-bus not connected. So we're going to go ahead and remove those two wires from this wiring harness. And that is the yellow wire and the black wire. And after we do that, then we'll go ahead and hook up the wiring harness to the DJI Air Unit, and then in turn to the flight controller. And we'll just go ahead and make sure that we have our proper orientation and how this actually wires in. Of course, it's only going to wire in one way, and our pins are at the top. Okay, so it's going to wire in this way right here. So again, what we'll do, the wiring harness for the flight controller is going to plug in right here. Pins are at the bottom. Tilt the quad up a little bit. A bit easier to see. Wiring harness appears to be connected, and we'll go ahead and place the flight controller onto the mounting screws. We had already put the gummies, installed the gummies. So the flight controller and the ESC are now hooked up. The pads, we actually solder the TBS Crossfire Unit 2 flight controller are over here, and they are the, when we get to that, the 5 volt, the ground, the R1, and the T1. So they're right on this side. So we'll go ahead and disconnect the 2 wires that we need to disconnect from here. There we go. Okay. We have the S-bus and the S-bus ground now disconnected. I'll push everything back where it belongs in this wiring harness. Okay. Now, this was all wound up and sized for the length it needed to be. So it is actually going to run down here. We'll go ahead and twist this like it was when it came out of the package. She is now connected, and then we will just see the length that we need. Can probably put a couple more turns on this. And this is pin down or up. Pins are down, pins are down, so it should go like this. Actually, we can bring this one up a little bit, make it a little easier. All right, so now the DJI Air Unit is attached to the flight controller. So the actual Crossfire unit is actually going to sit in this bracket here, and through this bracket the power leads will run through here, and the Crossfire antenna, the DJI Air Unit antennas will also mount through here. So what we probably should actually do before putting the Crossfire Air Unit in here after it is soldered is actually mount the DJI antennas, perhaps. Now, why this has 2 antennas? It's because it's actually the DJI Air Unit, the Caddx DJI Air Unit, and it requires 2 antennas. So that'll go like that, and then we will hook up the antennas. Go ahead and put these on loosely. we're figuring out as we go here. Okay, she snapped into place. I'll go ahead and screw these down again. The actual Crossfire antenna will come through this little opening here, and then the actual antenna sits right on here. So we'll go ahead and feed through our antenna cable. And again, that's going to come through somewhere through here. Have it go through the battery leads, and it will sit over on this side. So maybe we're going to route it actually on this side. Particularly care for how long the DJI Air Unit wires are either and how they're all twisted, but that may be how they all are. I'm not sure. Since I have never built a quad before. Yeah, that seems to be okay there for right now. So we'll go ahead and move this out of the way. Okay, we have the soldering iron heated up right now. The nice thing about these wires is these are already cut to size on the one end, and they're already tinned up, so we don't need to do anything there. So we're going to go ahead and wire them up to the, solder them up to the Crossfire Nano board here, and we'll try out the new flux pen and go ahead and tin up these pads first. Whew, these tiny wires. Tiny wires and old eyes. This just seems like the easiest way to do this. I suppose I probably should have cut this first to size. Yeah, I'm gonna sit just like that and then heat shrink that. So we'll cut her. In fact, we can make a little snip. That's hot. Almost done with this operation here. Okay. And finally, our last wire. Down here a little bit. Make sure we're not hitting any other pads. Okay, it's moving a little bit. Come on. Should be good. Clean her up and see what she looks like. And we might even ohm everything out, just make sure nothing's touching. But it looks like we got a pretty good. Got a couple stray wires on that last one that are hanging off the board, the pad. Oh, how far back can I move that? Just enough to touch that too. Yeah, it's not the greatest soldering job. On these smaller pads, I should have actually used a smaller tip. But it will work. So, the next task, I think, is to go ahead before we close this up and bind, put a smoke stopper on here first off and get a battery charged, and then go ahead and bind the air unit, and then to go ahead and bind the Crossfire before we seal this unit up. The other thing I'm going to do is on the DJI Air Unit on the camera, I did get a camera protector. I'm going to go ahead and put that on here. So I'll take this camera apart and put this on. It'll go right here, and then it has a glass protector over the lens if you want. I really don't care about that. I just want to protect this camera. So I'll probably install that. Of course, I can do that after we bind up the unit. We can do all of this before, I think we can do all this before we actually load the firmware. or load the defaults into the flight controller. I believe so. Not 100% sure about that, but that'll be the next step. So, because what we need to do is plug this into Betaflight, and now let me see if I put this cover on, am I able to get in there and push that button? I am actually. And then that button. So actually what I can do is do the camera and then finish this perhaps. Finish the install before I do anything else. Which may be the way to go. I've got, yeah, except for that black wire. I cut that black wire a little too short. But I think I can reach that. Now, I've got a little... The one thing about binding the Crossfire, the Nanos, is you don't really want to do anything metal in there and short anything out. I have some, yeah, here it is. I have a little bamboo stick. We'll see if we can push that down. If this is on here, am I going to be able to reach that button? I am. So I think what I'm going to do then, actually, is I'm going to go ahead and install the top and get everything put together. Now, I did own these out here as well, which is, I think, what a smoke stopper actually does. So I'm not sure. I'm thinking, I'm gonna think again. I'm thinking that we're gonna bind everything before I put the cover on and before I finish up the camera. So that is the next step. So I'm going to end this video for right now. And in the last video of this 4-part series, we will go ahead and bind everything and load the defaults into Betaflight for this quad, the Cidora SL5 V2.1. So we're going to end her there. We have the Crossfire soldered up, and in part 4 again we'll bind everything and we'll finish the install. We'll put the DJI Air Unit protector on the camera. I'm sorry, the protector on the camera. And go from there. So remember, FPV is not a crime, and it doesn't look like anything else I did today so far is either. So thanks for watching, appreciate it, take care. Give us a like and subscribe, and give us a thumbs up too, it'll help the channel grow. Thank you very much, bye-bye.